So how are you? Marvelous. A lot has been going on since we were last together. Right? Are we doing okay? Good. Sending lots of blessings, are we? Yeah. Is that why you did wade in the water? Were you thinking of Texas when you did that? Decided that?
Well, of course.
I got you covered, Aaron. No, it seemed perfect. It seemed perfect. And the line, God will trouble the water, is that like stirring it up? Is that what that means? Is that what you were thinking, God will trouble the water? I bet the people in Texas and Louisiana have a little different take on that right now.
Yeah.
But you know what's been so amazing along with that, just horrendous thing that has happened, is the outpouring of response and support to all these people in this land that has been devastated. And I continue to wonder what it takes for us as the collective to continue to reach out to one another without that kind of impetus. Right? To continue to be there for each other. To be extending our hands and our arms and our hugs and our supplies to one another continuously. That's our way of life. Without there having to be the skies opening up or whatever it is. Let it be so. Let it be so. Well, we're talking a little bit about something like that today. When I was watching all this outpouring of love and support and supplies and everything, as I was driving over here, I came over from Kirkland today and was listening to NPR, and they were interviewing this man who was running the supply thing at this parking lot in Orange, Texas, and he's in charge of handing out and he said the diapers and the water and the cereal, and he said, and the tampons. He says, you need all that stuff. And I said, yeah, I guess you do. And it was so sweet because it was this little southern man, and he had this kind of accent, and he was just so sweet, and I'm just going, oh my God, I love it. Anyway, the thing of it is like I was thinking about this, is how is it that it's so hard for us to have that open-handed feeling around each other until something like this happens, and then it's instantaneous. We don't even think about it, do we? We don't think about political lines or economic lines or skin color or ethnicity or anything like that when this stuff happens. We jump right in there. There's no question. Why is that? Because it's who we really are. It's who we always were. It's who we came in as. It's the other stuff that was learned. It's the judgment and the separation and those lines that we don't cross. That's the stuff that's learned, isn't it? We have huge opportunities now to unlearn those lines, to have big erasers come out of our hearts to erase those lines. There's no need to pick them back up. And wouldn't that be wonderful if that's what came out of a situation like this, that's so devastating for so many? Is that we finally we don't need to redraw those lines, no matter where it is in the world. And I was thinking about this, and I was wondering, why is it so hard for us? Why is it so hard? And I picked up a book by one of the wonderful Unity teachers. Unity has a wonderful legacy of spiritual teachers. Some of them are sort of well known, some of them not so much. And my mostest favorite one, right up there with Emily Cady, is Ernest Wilson. Do you know Ernest Wilson? If you don't know him, he's not as well known collectively like Emily Cady. Everybody in Unity pretty much knows Emily Cady. But Ernest Wilson, I guess he left us in the early 80s. He was really close to Charles Fillmore. And they were great friends. And Ernest was there when Charles made his transition. Anyway, Ernest was a great teacher, and he wrote a series of things that was put together, Unity put together, called the Master Class Lessons. Have you seen those? Do you know those? Ernest Wilson wrote those, so that's who he is. That's who he is. And he had quite a magnanimous personality, and in fact, back in the 60s, back in the early 60s, Betty White, you know who she is?
Yeah.
She had a talk show, like a daily talk show, like a morning talk show thing way back then. Remember the 60s way back then? You don't, Aaron. You guys don't, but most of us here do. Anyway, she had this talk show in L.A., and Ernest Wilson was a regular guest on her show. And he would provide the positive thinking. And she just loved him, and so you would see him regularly sharing positive lessons, very Unity stuff that came out and was on the LA TV show. I don't know if he was on once a week or every other week or something, but on a regular basis. And he had a church in LA, and he would get 4,000 people on a Sunday. Now, he was pretty well known, pretty well liked. And so I was flipping through the master class lessons, because I always get inspired by him. And I happened to stop on the pages where he's talking about prosperity. And he talked about the breath of prosperity, and I thought that was kind of an interesting, the breath of prosperity, what does that mean? And he said, giving and receiving are the two halves of the law of prosperity. We must give as we would receive. To spirit, supply is instantaneous. To consciousness, it is progressive. To have greater abundance, we must develop greater capacity to receive, appropriate, and use it. The clear vision of Jesus Christ disclosed to him that in spirit or in truth, supply for any need is instantaneous, but that to our human perception, supply is progressive. In truth, we are in the presence of infinite supply. And you hear that all the time, every time you hear a talk on prosperity, right? Supply is infinite. And we go, well, that's great. Have you seen my checkbook? It doesn't look like that. So what's the difference there? There's a gap or something, right? In consciousness, well, in truth, presence of supply is infinite. But in consciousness or human perception, we seem to come into supply step by step, gradually. For example, all about us is the air, more of it than our human mind can imagine or picture. But we have only as much of it as we can inhale and exhale through our lungs. What we have of the infinite air is according to our capacity to use it. And so, prosperity and supply is infinite, but we only have it according to our ability to allow it, to receive it. There's the variable. Do you see? You knew there was a catch, didn't you? Yeah, I know. We have what we can use. What we can use may seem very small in comparison to all there is, but we can increase our capacity if to do so serves any good purpose. And what we can use is the measure of our content and well-being. More than we can use is as uncomfortable as is less than we require. And many of us don't have much experience with more than we can use. In Texas, they have a relationship with more than they can use of water, right? And then Ernest used that quote that comes from the Bible that you may have heard it many times, and I always thought it was kind of confusing and didn't make sense until I read it here. Unto everyone that hath shall be given, but from him that hath not, even that which he hath shall be taken away. Have you heard that before? Did you always kind of wonder, what does that mean? Anybody know? Yeah, I didn't either. Ernest Wilson says, this statement applies very definitely to the matter of supply. To everyone that hath, and then he has in parentheses, the consciousness of supply. The consciousness of supply. More shall be given. But he who has not the consciousness of supply will not have anything, and in fact will lose what he has. Do you get it? Exactly. And our ability to hold it. You know, have you ever had to deal with bronchial respiratory illness, or maybe you were in the hospital with pneumonia? And remember, they keep bugging you with that little machine that you have to keep blowing in, you know? Well, you know why they do that is they want to strengthen your capacity to breathe, because the pneumonia or the bronchial issue or the respiratory problem is compromising that ability. And so you have to breathe that annoying thing. You have to keep doing it to keep practicing and strengthening, opening up our breathing capacity so we can allow more air in. Well, that's what Ernest is talking about here in terms of prosperity. We have to be willing to practice to open our capacity to more, to receive more, so that we can draw it to us. Because if we're walking around wondering why we're poor, we don't have anything, and it doesn't have to just be money. Prosperity, it can be with money, it can be with relationship, it can be with health, it can be with anything. If we're having a hard time with that and we're kind of mad wondering why God is ignoring us, but we're walking around with a capacity to receive that's like this, I mean, are there really any mysteries? No. If supply is infinite and our own personal experience is this, well, where's the problem? Right? Right? Now, so I was looking at this. Well, where is the problem? And one of the big things, and Ernest speaks to this too, is most of us are pretty good givers. We learn as children that it's important to give and to be a good giver, right? At the same time, most of us are not that good at receiving, are we? Not too good. And in fact, and we've talked about this before, in fact, if someone gives us a compliment, what do? Oh, this old thing? Oh, really? I know. Oh no. Someone sends us a blessing or offers us a gift or an acknowledgement, and what do? We don't accept it. We don't allow it. So it just goes off on the rocks. And so we wonder why it is that we don't have our coffers being filled up. Well, one of the reasons is because we have the doors closed. It's really tough. I mean, you know, Spirit is amazing, but it's not going to come through a closed door because we have free will. It doesn't ever come through the closed door. It just doesn't happen. So it's about opening those doors. And, you know, some people, I don't know, maybe you know somebody like this, who always has to get the check. I've got it. I'm the one. I've got it. I'll pay for it. My father was like that. He always pays. Doesn't matter how many people are there, how many people are at the table. It doesn't matter. Doesn't matter if it costs $50 or $500 the bill. He doesn't care. He has to take. I'll pay the check. And so it's like there's a kind of a thing that he gets, kind of a sense of control, kind of a sense of, look at me, I'm the powerful one. And in some ways, if you would ask him, he would think that he's doing a very generous thing. And to some extent, there's some of that in there. But there's also this need to be, it's about me. And so the other people or someone else in the room, and I mean, it can get into an argument at times of, no, I'm going to pay, no, I'm going to pay, no, I'm going to pay. It's that we don't give somebody else an opportunity to be the one to pay. And instead of being the one who's paying, being gracious and being a gracious receiver. Thank you. Thank you. That's so generous of you. Thank you. Do you see what I'm saying? And then there's another situation. We talk about giving and receiving because, as Ernest says, giving and receiving are equal halves. We're brought up thinking that it's more important to give. That is not true, my friends. It's just as important to be able to receive as it is to give. They're equal. And so if our experience of supply is out of balance, check your ability to give and receive. Make sense? Questions or comments about that?
Yeah. One of the greatest things that triggers is when I've done things like the exercise where somebody, can give a compliment, and the only thing you can say back is thank you. And you realize how much you turn around and say, oh, well, that's you, you're this, or oh, well, that's this or that, and you want to give the compliment back and never really receive. And I realized at one point how I didn't allow somebody else the honor that I get when somebody receives a gift.
Indeed.
Versus doing that, and the other way around.
So it's like we interfere with the flow, the divine flow of the opportunity of the moment.
Absolutely.
Right. Thank you. Yes.
Yeah, I was raised very fundamental religious,
Mhm.
literal, and it was drilled into us. It's more blessed to give than to receive. So it's taken years.
Oh.
And I mean, I can remember the first time I received something. It was just like, oh, mortification, And I had a unity minister tell me, if you don't learn to receive, you're never going to have, it's like, well, why was I taught that lie?
And we all have been taught that to some extent. In fact, it was that the idea of receiving was being selfish.
Mhm.
Oh, you're not supposed to think about receiving. That's bad. That's selfish. But you see, we have to understand that there's a balance. If we just give, what do we end up being? Empty. And then we give with resentment. Oh my God, I have to do one more. Oh. Oh.
Why is it always me?
Thank you, Debbie. Why is it always me? I just can't handle it. Oh. You know what I'm saying, right? I know none of you ever do that, but. And so if it's always ebbing, what do we have? A drought. Or if it's always flowing, what do we have? Ask them in Texas, a flood, right? So there has to be that balance, and that's where it seems like the challenge or the issue is in our world, is understanding that, is getting over that rule that says it's always about giving, it's not about receiving. Well, just think about it. It's totally one-sided. And then there's issues about giving. Besides, it's so tired. Beyond that is the issue of giving with strings. I know you don't do that. Giving with strings. Do you know what I mean by that? Well, I'll give this to you as long as I can get this thing back from you, or you'll show up this way, or you'll do this. Expectations, or you'll think of me like this if I give this to you. And see, my feeling is that if we were healthy receivers, we wouldn't have to do that. We wouldn't have to put strings on our giving. If we were open to receiving compliments and the energies and the blessings that there are available all the time, we'd be filled up. We wouldn't have to put strings on our giving. And I'm even going to suggest to you, and I'm going to remind you, because I think we've talked of this before a while back, of giving, even for example, if there's someone standing on the street with a sign, and you're going to drive up there and you're going to go, oh, I can't give to him. I can't give him anything. I don't know what he's going to do with that money. Why, he may even just take that money and buy some booze,
Yeah.
buy some wine.
Right.
He may buy drugs. I'm not, he's probably got more money than I do.
Yeah.
I mean, you've never had any of those thoughts, have you? When you see a person with a sign?
Uh-huh.
What I'm going to suggest to you is that what he or her does with that money is none of my business. The issue is the opportunity to give, to participate. And if I'm in the situation and I can, if I try to remember that when I roll down the window and hand out the money and he says, thank you, bless you, I say thank you for the opportunity. Because I'm exercising that opportunity to participate in the divine flow and to give without reservation, without judgment, without, oh, I can't do that. You're better off not giving at all without it. Because if you're doing it from that place of ickiness, it's a very official term, ickiness, it's more of a negative experience than anything, right? So someone that's standing there doing that, and I don't care if he's going to drive off in his Mercedes, I don't care. It doesn't matter what he does with it. That particular moment, that particular exercise is not about the person who's asking. Do you get it? They're opening an opportunity, a window for you to exercise your participation in the divine flow. You're giving and receiving, giving and receiving, giving and receiving. And they've given you that opportunity. So for that moment, you can say thank you. You can receive the blessing that you're offering him, that he's offering you. It's an even exchange when you think of it in those terms, right?
It's a very physiological thing, because as you were talking before, I felt giving was all this. Receiving is this, which is more vulnerable. But as soon as you just said that, making the difference of it doesn't matter what happens out there, then the giving is like this, and you let it go.
Exactly.
It's like prayer. You pray and you let it
Exactly.
go.
Great point. That's the thing, is then when we understand that it's a give and take, that it's a balance, that it's a flow coming back and forth, and that we need to exercise both without judgment, without resentment. And the more we do it, the less resentment there is. Because once we're giving from a full place, it can be fun. It can be easy. Right? When we're giving from an empty place, it's hard. It's exhausting.
I think too about the closed fist. You can't receive. You can't give, but you can't receive.
No. You cannot participate in the divine flow from this stance. No way. Doesn't matter how powerful spirit is, how powerful divine essence is. This is a no right here. And we always have the free will. And what we're saying to the universe here with this is no. And so it doesn't come.
Blocking our own opportunity for gratitude.
Exactly.
Experience gratitude.
Exactly.
I started a little experiment about probably 20 years ago, just to see, like check the universe out and just see. And hang my face out, so to speak.
Mhm.
And in moments of not having much, like maybe I only had like $2 in my purse or whatever, and somebody was needing something. I'm like, oh man, I really need, a gallon of gas or whatever. Give them that $1. And every single time, even if I gave them my last dollar, by the end of the day, before the sunset, I had been rewarded at least double, if not 10 times or more, out of the blue. And it's just like, how can this be? And it's never, ever, ever failed.
No, it won't. And you know why? Because that's saying I'm participating in the flow, I'm participating with spirit, and I trust it.
Which is the blue.
Which is absolutely. And so it's like when we are low on funds or whatever, To give at that point is highly powerful. Because from that place of a little, I'm saying to the universe, I'm trusting this process, and I'm opening myself up, like you're saying, opening myself up to all the possibilities. And so from the little bit that I have, I'm going to jump in to the divine flow and give, which is opening that door to receive. And indeed, you usually do get back at least what you gave, and probably more. Does that make sense? Have you all had that experience before? Yeah. Yeah. There is a flow to it. Spirit supply is infinite and instantaneous. The only variable is our capacity to open up and receive it. To give and receive with that consciousness, with that awareness that we are part of that flow, of that ebb and flow, and we're trusting it. And so if you have an area of your life, maybe it isn't money necessarily, but maybe you're feeling really lonely in this life. Maybe you're feeling unloved, or that you wished you had more love in your life. Then one of the things that we can do is begin that when you're around people, you are a very loving being. You are giving hugs. You are saying hello. You're saying, wow, I love that color on you. Wow. Or say something nice to the people at the ferry toll booth. I mean, those folks.
Yeah.
Bless their hearts. Oh my goodness. I've given one of those little wallet angels before, and she cried.
Oh my gosh.
She cried. Because, we just, like that all the time, and especially if we had to wait too long or whatever, they take a heap of abuse.
Oh my gosh.
And or at the grocery line or whatever. People that are serving the public and hear nothing but complaints all the time and whatever. When you stop and look in their eyes and breathe and say, hi, how are you today? How are you doing? Oh gosh, I really appreciate you.
Particularly return people who are getting returns coming back from the store.
Absolutely.
Oh my gosh.
So we start doing that. Do you see what we're doing? We're opening the doors and windows to that love flowing. And I promise you, you'll start bringing it in. You have to. Yeah, Sally.
I was in Safeway the other day in line checking out, and there was this woman in front of me who was arguing with the cashier.
Oh,
and she
no.
was standing there just solidly, and I think it was like for $1.10 or something like that. And the cashier was so patient with her, and so when this woman finally left after really a long time, I just walked up to her and I said, I have never seen anybody so patient as you have been with that lady. And we talked for a long time, and it was just really an amazing experience.
Yep.
She was just terrific with all this stuff that this woman was throwing at her.
Yeah. Yeah. And thank goodness you were there. You were like the angel in her life.
Yeah.
Because remember that you are. Absolutely. Ask anybody here. Everyone, all we all want is to be seen, felt, and heard. That's all any of us want, right?
Right.
That's all any of us need. And so if there's a moment that you can offer, you don't want to, grab a hold of somebody or anything and scare them half. It's not that. We don't want to call in 911 or anything like that. We're not talking about that. But you can say something, or you can see them and look in their eyes and let them know, I see you. I get what you're doing. I see how well you handled that person. I appreciate what you're doing here. And that's part of stepping into the flow that's operating all the time. And so when we see the flow of the overextension of water, overextension of dryness, or overextension of weapons, or overextension of whatever, what is our job is to help balance that energy. help balance. If there's so much hate out there, then balance it. Balance it with music, with love, with compliments, with peace. That's what we can do in this time. It's not about being a Pollyanna or in denial of what's happening in our world. It's being conscious and understand how life works. And life is all about balance. And so if something's going wrong, look at what's out of whack and become part of that which brings it back into balance. Questions or comments about that? Do you get that?
That you're either part of the solution or part of the problem.
There you go. That's your choices. Yeah.
Let there be peace on earth and let it begin.
And what it is.
Yeah. And Ernest suggests that another big reason that we have trouble with receiving is that God is our nearest relative. And how well do you know God? Pretty well? Are you on a continuing conversation with this nearest relative of yours? Or is it somebody way out there somewhere that you'd let in on Sunday mornings because you kind of have to when you come here because that's what we're talking about, right? Or, you know, I don't know, there might be other times too. But God is our nearest relative, and her greatest gift to us is that of herself, himself, itself. And we can better receive the manifold gifts to us as we learn to receive God into our life and heart. And most of us have not been very good receivers of God's presence. Because we think of it, we're separate, right? And so do you have an ongoing conversation with this amazing power, this amazing presence that's in you? If you don't feel it, it's not that it's not there, it's that we just haven't done what we need to do inside ourselves to be open to it, to let it come forth. Ongoing conversation. Don't worry if somebody sees you in the car with your mouth moving. It can be Bluetooth, right? I mean, who knows?
Right.
People don't pay attention to that anymore. Have that conversation. And you know what? Don't worry if you're mad or angry or hurt. I promise you, she can take it.
It's not Facebook, he's
Sounds
not
like
gonna
me.
unfriend you.
Never going to unfriend you. Totally. Thank you. That's right, Nora. God's never going to unfriend you. You are God in form. You're God in expression. Each one of us is a unique expression of that presence. And so all the time that we allow that connection to grow, to bubble up, and to grow, and to be, is just more and more strength that we have, more and more love that we have access to if we allow it. But again, it doesn't just come in. We have to say yes. We have to say yes. We have to choose it. God so loves us, divine essence, universal power, whatever you name that essence of life. The right name is the one that's on your heart. That's the name. Whatever you name that, loves you so much that it desires you to choose your way home. We have to choose. We have to say yes. And oh, when we do, the doors and windows come open and the miracles are occurring. But we have to say yes. That's the only requirement. And you say, well, there's a lot of life that can't say yes. Yeah, there's. My belief is they came in with yes. That's why they're here. That's yes. The trees, the sky, the water, the animals. They came in saying yes. They aren't here to find their yes. My feeling is they already did that. We think we're higher. Oh, no. Have you seen the dolphins? Have you seen the eagles?
Mhm.
You think they're less than us? No. I'm looking forward to a lifetime as an eagle or a dolphin. That's the difference. They came in with their yes. Does that make sense? Does that ring true for you?
Mhm.
Yeah. Questions or comments? Is this helpful?
Yeah.
Yes.
We need these reminders, don't we?
Yes.
So if we can't, the idea of developing that relationship with Source or Spirit inside is so important, because if we haven't developed that relationship, how in the world are we going to be open for whatever's out there to come to us? Because what is that really? It's a form of Source, isn't it? It's a form of Spirit. If we're having issues with, oh, I can't do that, and oh, I can't accept this compliment, and oh, and like this, it's like, oh my goodness. We've got all kinds of doors and windows closed. If you're experiencing lack of something in your life that you want, then check where the doors and windows are closed. And some of us have windows that are painted shut. Remember those? Remember wood windows that were painted shut?
Yeah.
Now you guys probably don't remember that, but there used to be. Did you ever have a wood window that was painted shut? You did, so you do remember that. But Elizabeth, you don't. I didn't think so. Well, we used to have wood windows, and sometimes when we were in a hurry painting a room, I guess is that why it happened?
Yes.
Yeah.
We're painting the room, and they're painting the frame of the window, and the paint goes across the bottom of the window, so that where the window would hit, the bottom, the paint would be there. And so, did anybody ever try to open a window that's painted shut?
Yes, I did.
You can't do it.
You can't pry
The
bar.
razor blade.
That's right.
When my husband took the air conditioners out last winter, he screwed them all shut.
Oh,
Oh
no.
my
So
gosh.
now, then he passes away, and I have to figure out cleaning them.
I'm
That they're-
sure.
Well, I would want some divine intervention on that. Absolutely.
And they're not opening, and it's because of no paint. They're screwed shut. It's like, really?
Well, there's some of those windows.
We want you to think of him.
That's right. Divine intervention. Let him come forth. That's right. So that's the thing, is there's many of us have a window or two that's painted shut, right? Or screwed shut in one's case. And so the opportunity is to find that stylus or whatever it's going to take to open it up. And if you need a physical representation of that, go for it. Use it. Use it. That part of you that has been afraid to receive the compliments. The next time you get a compliment, say, thank you. Thank you. And that's part of that. You can see that stylus going across where the paint's in front of the window. Right? Thank you. Thank you so much. Thank you. This is my favorite, whatever it is, shoes or whatever. Thank you. Thank you for noticing. Yeah. Any more questions or comments?
I think that usually begins with stop, take a breath. And in a lot of cultures even, in breath is in spirit. And that is the meaning of being in spirit, is in breath. And when we're holding, we're not fully open to receiving, because that breath is the connecting point. So a lot of times when you want to respond back with a compliment, give it back out or whatever it is, or whenever you react, is stop, take a breath.
Thank you. And that's a good reminder, because that reminds me of something. Thank you. So somebody says, I love you. And before we can allow it, what do we say back? I love you too. And so the opportunity is because what we just did was this. And the opportunity is when someone says, I love you, to stop, take a breath and say, thank you. Thank you. And then say, and I love you too. Because now you're coming from the place of open-heartedness. Not just, I got to get back out to them because they said it to me. You see what's happening there when we're doing that? We're skimming across the top of the moment. we're skimming across the top of the moment of love. And here's all this love that comes with the declaration, and we're skimming across the top because we want to make sure we say it right back. Do you see? So if we stop, thank you, thank you, I receive it, thank you, and I love you too. And so that what I'm giving back, what you're giving back in that moment, is now you're connected to that well of love instead of skimming across the top. Does that make sense? Can you feel that? Because isn't that what we always do? I love you too. And didn't take the moment to receive that blessing, that declaration, that enormous hug that just came. So you promise next time? Take a breath. I don't want to annoy you or anything, but if it's my voice that comes in, that's fine. But if it's somebody else's, that's just as well. I don't want to be the one to, I don't want to be your conscience or anything. Just say, thank you. Thank you. Thank you. I received that.
You related to Esther Hicks?
Am I related? No. I
think
like
you're
her.
channeling Abraham.
Am I really? Oh,
Yes.
oh, she does a much better job.
You just say thank you.
Okay, all right. Oh, thank you. Thank you, Abraham. Thank you. What was your pretty name? It was Alea?
Elaine.
Alea. Thank you. Thank you. So and then the last thing is, there was one last thing. What was that? It went right out of my head. Having to take that compliment, it went right out of my head. So we've got the doors and windows open. We've talked about our issues with giving and receiving. Oh, Ernest Wilson says, giving is a fine art, but to be a good receiver takes even greater spiritual understanding and unselfishness. And the other point that he makes, this is the thing, is very often when we think in terms of compliments and how we want to give and receive, we think of people out there, but we forget about the people in our lives, like our family members, our partners, the people that we live with, our children, our parents, the people that we're in relationship with all the time. So very often, and you've probably heard this, have you ever been in the grocery store or somewhere and you hear family members talking to each other and they're not very kind? And you wonder, because you know these people, on some level, they love each other. But what's coming out, the words that are coming out, and the tone that's attached to them isn't very loving, isn't very complimentary, isn't very grateful. And so sometimes it's easy because of the people we're with all the time. Sometimes we think it's okay to talk with those kinds of tones, with not care, communicating with people that we see all the time with something less than care, with something less than conscious intention. You know, what is it, the saying, and I think it's a song too, we always hurt the one we love, the ones we love. It's true, isn't it? Because of that, we're available all the time, so they're the ones that get our less than perfect frame of mind or mood or whatever it is. So then if that's the case, then for if that gets out, if that comes from us, then to go back and clean that up. Because that's God too. And sometimes it's funny because a lot of times we don't think of our family members as being spirit informed, do we? They are. Every single one of them are spirit informed too. We're all operating from that spirit informed at various degrees. Some of us aren't operating from there at all. And that's obvious. But it's there. Questions, comments about that? So let's just take time, let's move on into a moment of meditation. And as it feels comfortable, get comfortable in your seat, and if it feels comfortable, close your eyes. And just breathing, practice breathing, and starting to breathe from your chest, and then from your tummy, then from your knees, from your toes. Breathing, breathing and allowing. That's the exercise, isn't it? Breathing and allowing. Breathing and allowing. Breathing and allowing the divine flow to move through us, body, mind, and spirit. And if there's any places you notice of tension or tightness or yeah but, just breathe through there. Just breathe. No judgment, just breathe. Breathe and allow. And if you come upon a window or a door that needs to open, go ahead. Turn the knob. Undo the latch. Open it up. Is there anything more refreshing than opening that window on a morning when the cool breeze comes through? And let that cool breeze come in and send off any dust, any cobwebs, any stuck places. Making room for a new beginning, a new possibility, a new perspective. And so from this place of easy, full breathing, connected to Source, aware of our connection in oneness with all life, we are reminded that indeed we are connected to all life. And so with this holy breath, as we lift ourselves up, we consider all those who could use this reminder right now. All those who are challenged, who may be suffering, who may be alone, who may have lost everything, who may be making their transition, who may have lost someone. All the animals and wildlife who are affected by these out of balance experiences. All life. That as we breathe and lift ourselves up, all life is lifted up. And we especially hold in our prayers right now a dear elder of ours who was here at the beginning of this spiritual community, way back when, way back before the days of Trenton. Mary Atchison, who's communicated with us and asked for our love and prayers as she holds us in love and prayers. And if there's anyone else you'd like to remember now, that you'd like us to hold together with Mary, with all those in the southeast, that are suffering. Is there anyone else? Feel free to say their names aloud now. Very. And as we are all one, and we claim the truth of us as spirit in form, as divine essence in expression, we claim it for ourselves and for all life. And that all life is lifted up in this moment for its highest purpose, its highest outcome. And for the opportunity to be reminded of this oneness. We are grateful, and so it is. Amen.